Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Brain 202, Gardening and Evolving Your Brain. We're going to be covering just so much change. It's spring. The weather's beautiful. People are outside gardening. We're going to start gardening inside in our brains as well. So this is a great session. It's great for users who've been using the product for years because often we have older brains that we just have a section that, we don't like to venture into that area. We've created too many links, or even just a new user that they created something and they're like, maybe I could evolve this further. So today's all about change and revamping that brain. My name is Shelly Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today's event with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And I see some familiar names in the list of attendees. So I often remind people when this class is coming up as an extension from The Brain 101 to join The Brain 202. And I see we're definitely going to take a look at a few more advanced features today. It's going to be very exciting. Thanks for joining.
Excellent. All right. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of moving thoughts and changing things, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a conceptual framework for why this is necessary and what all the change is for. When is it time to change? Because a lot of us, we create that first structure and we just kind of stick with it. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a couple things that might give you pause to think, hey, let's look at, and if we were a client, if you were like a client of ours, we'd call it a knowledge audit, where we actually review structure for breadth versus depth and things of that nature. We're going to do the same thing. So you can almost consider today a methodology, if you will, for yourself to do that knowledge audit for your own personal brain. So if you're not satisfied with your current thought structure, of course, great time to change it. Ding, ding, something's wrong. But other indicators that are a little bit more specific, and this is also equally important, actually equally if not more so important when you are doing a team brain with lots of people. Some red flags can be too many thoughts and links around a thought. So we'll cover that. And then you kind of have the opposite scenario, which we'll also show you, which is too many clicks down for major categories. So if you have a marketing and sales brain, but all the key proposals that you're using are buried under like your vertical client industry, 5 clicks down. I mean, you can certainly use the instant activated search to get there, but you probably want to look at organizing categories from multiple places and changing that outdated information. That's another just a very basic and common issue where Matt's going to show you how to run reports on your information, and you can look at what needs to change and evolve. And then finally, people do this all the time, like Jerry Mikulski. He actually sort of coined the term gardening in a way. He's got over 260,000 thoughts, and people just love their brain and they want to perfect it. And there seems to be sometimes more with newer users a little bit of a hesitation that, I created this structure, don't touch it or change it. Very, very easy to unlink, relink, move thoughts around. Mass select thoughts. A lot of people don't realize that you can mass select groups of thoughts and do this, do a bunch of things at once. Thought typing for organization and thought tagging. A lot of people also forget about utilizing these features when they have a large brain. And then finally, just running reports, some basic reporting on parent lists, orphan, thought types, all very relevant for you for your knowledge audit. And the way we're going to start looking at a brain in terms of how you structure a brain is there are several ways. First of all, your thought relationships, whether something is a parent above your active thought, a child, or a jump. That's one way you can categorize. But there are other ways as well. In addition to parent, child, and jump relationships, you can have thought types, which is a thought types enables another level of metadata. So you don't have to create multiple child categories. That can be also a form of categorization. And then thought tags, where you attributes and link types describing how information is connected. That can also be helpful. So that's really it. Let me just go ahead and close this presentation and open up my brain now here. And this brain, I've actually created a brain, my brain here, that has a few problems, and I definitely want to have that just so you guys can see how to evolve things. So let me just float my window here and adjust it a little bit for everyone. Okay, so even though this is a 202 class, we're going to start with the basics of categorization. So just so everyone is on the same page, of course, clicking on any thought in the brain triggers all related pieces of information, and the primary mode of organizing information is parent, child, jump, and of course you've got siblings to the right, which are derived relationships. And of course, if I continue to click on thoughts, I can evolve, I go drill down deeper. So that's the kind of the key way when I'm building a brain, when I'm looking at a brain to edit or evolve or garden, I want to look at, okay, is everything under here really a client? Does that make sense? Is the jump thought a good jump thought? And how do I want to structure things? And now in terms of changing relationships, so let's say I have two pieces of information connected that I don't want connected, like client services, for instance. And maybe I want that at par with the clients, the services we offer. Maybe I just want to call that services. So first of all, it's very easy to change the name of a thought. I can just go into the thought tab, and I'm just going to say company services. So I'm going to change that to company services. And now what I want to do, I don't want that below clients. So I'm actually just going to drag up over here and make it now a sibling. So now what you can see is in my business, company services is at the same level of clients. It's no longer a child thought. Now, of course, if I want to change that, I can move it back down. So in this case, I'm doing location relevance. In this case, stuff that's located in a very close distance to my active thought. This is where you can do the dragging to change relationships. I also love that for, I might put something in or create a thought off the wrong gate. Like, what do I do? Very simple as well. So for instance, we've got Jack Goodman, Senior VP of Services. The knowledge model, or the way this brain is set up, is we have interlocking hierarchies. So we've got client information, and then we've got a people hierarchy here where I can navigate up and down. And then we connect the people to their relevant area in the business as a jump thought, which is a good thing to do. And the reason in this brain we've done that is because Jack isn't a client, so he doesn't belong as a child. He is not the only person who oversees the client, so making him a parent seems a little wrong too. So what you can see is I'm simply dragging around my active thought to get him to where we think he needs to go, which in this case is a jump. But that's just something for you to keep in mind, if you want to change things. Like, for instance, if Jack is the guy who's in charge of everything and you think he belongs as a parent, you simply drag above into the parent zone. Around your active thought, you have zones for parent and child and siblings. So if you just drag to these different areas and release your mouse button and drop, you can change the relationship that way as well. I mean, certainly you can link and unlink with the gates, but you don't have to do that. So that's just kind of one quick tip as you're sort of mapping things out and deciding, do I want this as a jump? Do I want it as a child? Do I want it as a parent? That's very relevant for you to know. And then in this model too, sometimes the jump area, you can use that just for information that you want to highlight. So maybe in this case, Time Warner, you always have, I've met companies that even though they have all their clients here, their very top one, they distinguish by a jump just because they like having it separate from the other stuff down here. So, all kinds of very interesting models and ways of looking at the information, and you can change it if I don't like it, like, no, that doesn't make sense. They are a client, therefore a subcategory, they need to go below. boom, then I've just put that below. So these are the kinds of editorial choices that you are going to be making in your brain, and you have the tools to do it. So lots of flexibility. Now, I'm just going to review this area and look at some things here. What I can see here is I've got a section for manufacturing with all my manufacturing clients buried under that, and I also have a section for travel. Now, I kind of want to see all my clients right away. So in this case, I have a category, an intervening category that I want to get rid of. So what I'm going to do is, instead of having this child thought that says manufacturing, I want to create thought types for these clients that are of a manufacturing nature, type them, and move them right under clients. So a couple things. Of course, I can right-click on any thought to create a thought type. As it works out in this brain, I actually have a manufacturing client thought type. If I didn't have the thought type I needed, I could just select new type and create that. Now in this case, I'm going to tag the one. If I want to type the one. If I want to type or do a mass action to all thoughts, I control-click on the gate. I'm on a PC today. That would be command-click for those of you that are on a Mac. But again, you command or control-click on the gate. That brings all your thoughts into the selection area. And now from here, I'm actually going to right-click on that selection box, and I have the ability to select a thought type. So let me go ahead and grab that manufacturing client thought type, and you can see, boom. So now they're all thought typed as manufacturing. Because I've added that thought type to them, I feel like I can move them up just to see them right under client. So what I want to do as well is I want to, again, I'm on a PC, so I'm going to say control-click on that gate, go back to clients, and now right-click on my selection box, and I'm going to link these as children under clients. I actually want to put them right under clients. Now, if I was keeping this manufacturing area, I could come here and select to unlink, and that's one way to do it, and I'll show you. So now they're unlinked from manufacturing, but actually in a way I didn't have to do that because I'm actually going to just forget this thought. Now, the brain offers a two-tiered deleting system, much like your recycle bin. So if I right-click on it, I can select forget, or if I hold down my shift key, I can actually delete this thought right away. So let me just hit forget, though, so you can see that is forgotten. And if you ever want to see where all your forgotten thoughts are, you can go up to options and select show forgotten thoughts. Now, you probably want to clear this every once in a while, but the nice thing about it is if I did not intend to get rid of manufacturing, I can select it, and you can see how it's appearing in a lighter color. That lets me know, okay, well, Shelley, I can either delete it permanently, I don't need it, or remember it. And if I click remember, this thought comes back as full force, or I can delete it. In this case, I want to go ahead and delete it. So let me go ahead and do that. And you know what I always do before I publish, like, clearing recycle bin, I like to hit select all in this area and delete all my forgotten thoughts. And that is really just the equivalent of a recycle bin. So there you go. So now you can see this is looking a little bit different here. I can do the same thing with my travel clients. I actually have a travel thought type. So let me come in here and select the thought type of travel. And the thought types are listed alphabetically here. So here is travel. And now they all have a little travel symbol on them, and I'm just going to put them right up under clients as well. So link as children. Now, for instance, if I wanted them as jump, I could select link as jump, and they'd appear as jump. I can select link as parents, and they'd appear up here as parents. And then I can do kind of whatever I want. And let me just go back to clients. They're still highlighted. But I really, of course, I want them as children of clients, my active thoughts. So let me select. And now they're down there. Okay, and so that's done. And I'm actually going to just go ahead and forget the intervening client. So now you can see what I've done here. I've created, and you know what, some people, you can go in the other direction, and I have another example where we're adding more categories. But in this case, because I wanted a broader view to see all my clients, I've done that. But in a way, I've still kept the category active by using thought types. So I can see all my manufacturing, all my travel, all my VIP, and then just untyped clients. I can go in there and type those later. And this view, by the way, when you have the thought or thought types, is arranged by type, because if I have selected by name, then they just go alphabetically and their type is mixed up, which is fine. But once you do type thing, you can also do maybe last active date. That's kind of a cool one, especially for client management. So in that case, now Disney is bubbling up at the top. And again, I'm right-clicking and I'm selecting to arrange thoughts by. I like to, as I mentioned, when I use thought typing, to arrange by type by order. So there we go. So now all the types are together. So that takes care of that area. Now I'm going to go into my people area and just do a little changing and evolving of this. And what a lot of people do is will map out their human resources structure. So in this case, we have Barbara Powers, the CEO, who manages Terry. So that's why Terry is under Barbara. And under Terry, we have sales directors as well as managers. So I have another case here where I created a category and it's an unnecessary click for me. In this case, it's fine. It's not the end of the world, but I want to get rid of this. So I could, of course, just do this. This is one way of doing it. If you like to drag, oopsie, just go like that and move these guys. So they're right under Terry. And then, of course, come in here. I don't need the sales directors area. Or I can do, like I did for my clients area, I can just control click on this gate to get all the directors. And now I'm just going to link them under Terry Mason as children, VP of Sales. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that manager's thought, that extra little click or category that I didn't need. So in this case, I'm actually pruning. Like some of you might be pruning your yard or your trees. In this case, I decided to get rid of a few extra clicks so that I could see all the directors and managers who report to Terry. Now, let's say there's been an org change and all of a sudden I need to move people. So Sally has a really cool VP, Jack Goodman, who actually needs a few more directors. We're going to move some of these people that were under the director of business development to Jack. So I'm going to actually create a pin to Jack. So I know I'm doing that, and I'm going to go ahead and go back. Now I can actually go, Terry Mason's in my past thought list. He's got a lot of people. And some of these directors actually are doing more service work, and I can click on that to see. So Mallory is working on Boeing, United Nations. Mallory actually belongs under Jack. So I'm going to go ahead and type the first couple letters of Jack's name, select Jack, and connect Mallory under Jack. And now I want to right-click and unlink her from Terry Mason. So I've just changed Mallory's position in the company by linking and unlinking. So Mallory is no longer under Terry, she's under Jack. And what we're trying to do is move more from a sales to a services company. So we're actually doing a little bit of an org where we're moving a lot of our sales people into the services area. So that's making a lot of sense. I have to go back to Terry, and I can take a couple people. Maybe I want Elizabeth and Lisa to also be moved over to Jack Goodman, and I have him as a pin here. So I'm just going to go ahead and activate Jack, and because I've got two selected, I'm going to link as children under Jack Goodman, VP of Sales. Just make sure I selected that. And there they are. You can see they're there. And then I'm going to go back to Terry Mason, VP of Sales, and you can see they're still under Terry. I don't want people reporting to two different people. Like if I clicked on Lisa, you can see she's got both of them. So now what I do is I activate the thought that I want to perform the action under, which is VP of Sales. I want to unlink both Elizabeth and Lisa simultaneously from Terry. So I've got them selected. I'm going to right-click, and there is an option here in the mass selection box to unlink the selection. So boom, boom, there they are, and they're gone. So you can see how I've cleaned that up by linking and unlinking and done an org change. Now, the other thing you can do, of course, in this particular model, we have manager, director, and executive. We might want to change things, like maybe Harry gets a promotion. So Harry is no longer a director. He is a executive. So that's very easy. Just simply change his thought type. Now you can see Henry, has the red symbol rather than the blue director. And now he's moving on up. He's going over to Barbara for his own division. He's no longer, Terry's getting a little bit of a consolidated team, but that's fine. He can focus on what he does, sales. But now you can see, so he's got the 4 people and so forth. We've now moved people, and of course we've gone ahead and changed it so that we put some more people under services. So you can see how that works and how easy it is to change and evolve things through unlinking, through thought types, and so forth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to another area in this brain. I'm going to go to my personal section, which actually is exhibiting the opposite problem of what we just talked about. We talked about sort of editing and pruning, maybe getting rid of categories. In this case, very common, especially for new users, you might start a brain with your name and then just put a whole bunch of stuff under there. Nothing wrong with that, because it's really great to just capture those ideas as they come and brainstorm. But then you get sections that look like this. It's like, ooh, personal area. Don't even want to go in here. I don't even want to touch this. So how do I make this area? So in the last example, I focused on moving stuff up to broaden categories. In this area, I want to actually make this area smaller. I'd really like to see maybe 10 thoughts here, not the huge number of thoughts. It's getting hard to read and a little overwhelming, to be honest. So this is an example where we need to make additional categories, not revise the categorization structure, but add categories. So here, what I'm going to do when you get an area like this is you have to look for thoughts that have commonalities to them. So, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff. So for instance, there's a lot of stuff here like Caribbean, airline numbers, camping, vacation activities, Universal Studios, that actually would all look really cool under a section called vacation and travel. So I am going to create a new thought called vacation and travel. Great time to start thinking about and revamping this area as we plan for our summer vacations. And now everything that falls under this area in my personal section, I want to move. I don't necessarily want it linked right up to personal. It's too overwhelming. I want to move it under vacation and travel. So there's a lot that can really go under this section. So now I'm just scrolling through all the siblings and looking at what makes sense. So certainly vacation activities. So I'm just dragging and dropping. Hotels, that definitely belongs under there. Let's keep looking at these sections here. So you can see how I'm kind of just going Universal Studios, take the family there. So this is how I'm just going through it all and just looking. And now, actually, let me just make the area come up. I like to give these new sections, make them a little fun. I'm going to give this a nice, let's go into transportation and give this a little balloon icon. So you can see I've got a vacation and travel. But I'm going to come back and look, and there's probably a few other things that make sense to put in this area. So for instance, I'm going to control click on diving, Cozumel, Caribbean, airline numbers, and camping, because these are all things. And I think that is most of them here. And actually, you know what? I'm even going to put pet sitters under that too, because when I travel, we need pet sitter. So now I've got what's selected in this area. I'm going to go ahead and select vacation and travel. Now, because of the proximity, I could just keep dragging them, but the mass select gives you a little bit of a way to kind of say, okay, here's everything I need to change. They're all sort of in this bucket now. Now what I'm going to do is simply right-click on that and link them as children under travel. And so here now, if I were to stop, you never want a situation where you have thoughts linked under the child and the grandparents, I guess in this case personal. So that's a bit weird. So now I'm going up to personal, and I want to unlink these guys, because again, the idea is to prune, to streamline what's linked directly under personal and unlink them. Boom. So you can see we're getting a little clearer here. Another category that makes sense here, I'm seeing a lot of stuff, mom, Sally, dad, friends, family ancestry. So I think what I need is I need a category in personal. This is also just great ideas for new categories if you guys are in this situation. Friends and family, I love this category because then you can put all kinds of stuff. I actually have links to all my friends, and I'll even drag and drop stuff that, you know, when comes time for Christmas or their birthday, just cool things that I might want to buy them on Amazon. And again, let's go ahead and just grab a select a thought icon. Let's go into the people area. This is a nice place where you can actually add photos of your family, but let me just do that for now. And I'm going to go back and do that same method where I'm just control clicking on these lovely people here. And I want to get them all in the brain. So I've got mom, dad, Sally. I want to do friends. I'm going to do family ancestry. I'm going to do friends and family is my category. Kids, let's go ahead and grab that. And, you know, that is looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go to friends and family. I'm going to link as children under friends and family. Then I'm going to activate personal, and I'm going to select, now that personal is my active thought, to unlink them from personal. Okay, so you can see that is going well. And there's another thing. There's a thought here called, I saw a thought called more family time here, and that I'm going to just drag under. So you can always kind of do things one-off too. And I also see here we have a lot of stuff on dogs and cats and all kinds of things. So I'm going to create a new category called animals and nature. Okay, so again, another common theme where there's a lot of stuff. Let me go ahead and add an icon. I'll put that in there. And let me go ahead and maybe I'll add organic gardening there. I'm going to add cats. I'm going to add dogs. And let's see, the living things diagram, pet care information. All that makes sense. So now you can see I'm getting some nice categories. There's one final category I want to add before we move on, and it looks like I have a lot of hobbies floating around here. So I'm going to create a thought called hobbies. And again, actually there's this area called cute for icons for hobbies. Let me go ahead and add a little Rubik's Cube thought there. And now I'm just going to drag and drop stuff like gardening, golf, health and fitness, books, movies and entertainment, music, my latest preoccupations. All this goes under hobbies. So you can see that this is cleaned up very nicely. You know, just if you're watching the recording tomorrow, or you can just rewind and look at what it was and do before and after, sort of giving this area a faceless and a categorization update. And there's still stuff like, so look, I missed kids, no big deal. So I'm going to put kids under friends and family too. So now I'm getting this pretty clean. I still have a few other things, causes, but that already has some stuff under it, and this is where I can come in and just revamp with icons. And a lot of you, especially if you were you're still on version 7 and maybe you've just upgraded to version 8, you might just want to add the built-in icons on 8 are fabulous. So I'm just going to add a happy face for causes. So these are just different charities and political affiliations. I've got animals and nature, causes. This is just something that an article I found interesting. house projects, style and culture, which actually is kind of a hobby, but I can put it there. Well, no, maybe not. I can move it up. So again, I'm just showing you how easy it is to change. You can change your mind, you can change your brain. And this area has become really nice and clean now, as opposed to, what it looked like about 5 minutes ago. So that's the way that works. That's to kind of streamline and take a messy area and clean it up with some extra categories. Now there's a couple other examples of cleanup with thought types that I want to show you real quick before I pass presenter over to Matt. So let me go to my my teaching and learning brain here. And these examples are organization by thought type. So we actually have a brain here, and I'm just going to make the thoughts a little smaller so you guys can see, of the United States president. And what we have is Democrat, Federalist, and Republican. Now this is an example of creating, rather than having under United States presidents, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Federalists, and whatever other party, I want to see all the presidents connected to that thought. So this is where I'm using a thought type as a way to show a level of categorization rather than creating that extra category. Another idea for organization, and again, I would probably do this arranged by name. Now, because another way to organize stuff in your brain is to create, is to numerate thoughts. So we've got 1 to 44 here. And in this case, it makes sense to, when I click on arrange thoughts by, to go by name, because I want to show that chronologically. I want to see who the first president is, George Washington, to the last president, President Obama. So here you can do that. And by the way, zoomable icons, another way to really jazz up your brain. We can show you how to do that in the Q&A if those of you are interested. But this is just, a great example of, I've got 44 thoughts here, right? It doesn't look overwhelming because they're enumerated and they're thought types. It's very precise. So in a way, it's the way you kind of design and think about things in this case. And if I want to change that view, if I want to arrange them by type just to see, which party each person belongs to, maybe that's more important. Maybe I'm analyzing how many parties have had the presidency over time, which is an interesting research topic with the new presidential election upon us. So you can do that just by looking at it this way as well. So that's just to give you an idea on how that works. And of course we can put in, who's going to be the next president and, that's, which party and all that kind of stuff. Have some fun with that. And then the other example is living things. So in this case, we're using thought types to convey the classification on the animal taxonomy. So here it goes kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, if you're talking about the organization of living things. So this is also for those of you in the medical sciences, the research area. Just want to also give you some ideas for mass classification of information through thought types. So here, the kingdom is represented in sort of a pinkish color, so I can go into the kingdom of animals. And then the phylum, which we'll do phylum chordata, so living things with a backbone, is in orange. And then we have the class. So let's go for mammals. Let's go mammals. And then the order, and the reason I'm showing you this is because another way that you could have done this is put mammals and then have another thought. But this is sort of streamlining your category structure with thought types. And then the order is carnivora. So in this case, we're looking at all carnivores, and we can go into cats, the family. And then from there, you get into the genus and then the actual species, right, which could be the lynx or, that sort of thing. So now you can see the way the thoughts coming in. These are more objective-oriented thought types. You can have, and then it's playing the same sort of roles they did in the other brain, where we had manager, director. So these are things that are going to add additional level of classification and organization onto a brain that has a lot of stuff. So don't forget about your thought types We also can do thought tags, which are interesting too. So if you just have little snippets of stuff, like everything that's a hot research topic, I've gone ahead and tagged it. So if I'm doing some work on particular diseases or whatever, maybe I'm looking at type 2 diabetes and I want to add this as a hot research topic, I can do that just by adding that tag. And now when I click on hot research, I see it all. But I think that's a good segue to Matt, because Matt also does some really cool things with thought types and tags. So Matt, unless there's any questions, I'm going to go ahead and pass presenter over to you now.
Yes, great. Please do. And I'm glad you talked about using thought types, because I have sort of the same scenario that you have outlined, where there's an area of my brain that really needs my current focus, really needs some attention. And, Shelley showed us a great option to reorganize this with some thoughts and saying, all right, these are all my thoughts that are on this particular topic. Whether it's personal or vacation or personal interest, whatever the case may be or that topic may be. We can definitely reorganize our thoughts that way. In this case, I am going to set up an area of my brain, my business brain that I'm working on, using just the thought types. And there's a couple of key advantages to using thought types. When you start using thought types and tags, you're really getting into some of the more advanced features of the application. You're definitely approaching Brain 2.0 category. So what I'm going to do is set up some new thought types and utilize some existing thought types in this area of my brain. This is an ad campaign for a client that has sort of grown, starting to grow out of control. I've got a lot of new content. I can easily access it, but if I'm specifically looking for the project plan, I'm looking through alphabetically, and it takes me just a few seconds. There it is, third column towards the bottom. There's my project plan. That's a little bit of extra time, and if these were grouped and easily identified with thought types, that would help me, number one, to more quickly identify my information and find the information I'm looking for, but also I can run reports. Shelley briefly mentioned running those reports, and we can definitely run reports against our data to start finding information in a larger evolving brain. So let's go ahead and get started. The first document I see here is this 2017 sales forecast. Now, for all of my clients that I work on, I have sort of a classification of the different types of documents I'm creating. And obviously, some of those are invoices or contracts or whatever the case may be. In this case, I like to call them life cycle documents. So it's the life cycle of the ad campaign. So I am going to create a new thought type. So I can click on this thought to activate it. And if I right click, I can set up a thought type. And if life cycle was here, I would simply select it to identify that as a life cycle document. It's not there, so let's go ahead and create some new thought types. I simply select new type. This is one way to create a new thought type. With the thought as the active thought, right click, create a new thought type, and we'll call this life cycle. Say OK. And this allows me now, it takes me to the life cycle thought type thought. So this allows me to classify how I'm going to identify my life cycle documents. You can get to thought types by doing a search. Obviously, you can go to the thought types tag down below, or excuse me, the tool tab down below. So you can click there, go directly to a specific thought type to change its color, give it a new icon, and that is a universal change. All thoughts of that type will be identified that way within your brain. So here on the Thought Tool tab is where I can now set up my appearance of life cycle documents. So I can click to add a color. I'll give it a nice purple color. And I love having icons for all of my thought types. A great visual identifier for all of my different thought types. So I click on the little plus sign here on the Thought Tool tab. And this opens up the Brains icon library. Now, Shelley showed us this earlier, and we had the question come in about, can you modify your own icons, add your own icons to this library? You certainly can. Just send an email into support@thebrain.com. I don't think we'll have time to cover this today because it's a little more detailed, but you can even add your own directory to this list, and we'll send you specific step-by-step instructions to do that. So for life cycle documents, I'll go down to just my business area and something that just sort of shows progression. I like this little scale. So all of my life cycle documents will now have this nice visual identity, purple with the little scale icon there, and I can go down to my documents and I can right-click on an individual thought and set up the thought type as a life cycle document. There it is. Or I can actually start control clicking. As Shelley showed us earlier, we can control click on a PC. That's a command, press command and click to add thoughts on a Mac to your selection box. So let's get this done quickly. I'm going to start control clicking on some of my documents. There's a few, and I think I've got demo script. We'll put that somewhere else. So this should be good for now. And I'll right-click on my selection box and in mass change all of their thought types. So now Shelley showed us there's a lot that we can do here, and maybe we'll get to even a few more features, but you can unlink thoughts from a particular area, relink them somewhere else, copy them into another brain. In my case, I'm changing all their thought types to life cycle. So I go down, select life cycle, and all those thoughts have been identified as life cycle. Now, they're still a little sporadic through my collection of thoughts in this particular view, this grouping. So I'm going to right-click on the background and arrange my thoughts, rather than alphabetically, arrange them by thought type. Now that I'm utilizing this thought type feature, I've now grouped in this large cluster all my life cycle documents into one area. Next, I've got some meeting notes. And I already have an existing thought type for meeting notes, so this is going to start going a lot quicker. I've got a few different meeting note thoughts here, and this is typically an area where the meeting notes are actually in the notes of my brain. There's no document icon or document attachment. Those are just notes in my brain, but I'm classifying those all as simply meeting notes. So I set the thought type for meeting notes. And everything is starting to fall into place. I've got one more thought type that I'd like to create, and we'll call this product research. So I've got a lot of different web pages. These are web pages that I really like the look of. I'm going to share this with my design team to see if we can grow something in-house to reflect the same type of web structure for our client. And so I'm going to place these all under research. I even have a couple of icons here, some zoomable icons that, again, I think we'll be using for this ad campaign. So in this case, I'm going to click on the Thought Type Tool tab down below and click the green plus. So this is just simply another way to create a new thought type. This thought type will be called Media Research. And once again, I can classify what media research is going to look like. So on the Thought Tool tab, I can change the color. And media research, let's say, will all be green. I can also right-click on the thought itself and get to my Select Thought icon. So I'll select a thought icon from the TheBrains library. And for media research, maybe we'll go down into technology down below. Here you can see I've got one of Matt's stuff. I've got my own classification of icons there. So you can see that that can be done, and this list can be modified. So under technology, media research, since we're going with the green, I'll go with this green battery. That looks kind of fun. And I'm going to navigate back to my Reach Out ad campaign and once again grab all of my media research. That's my demo script, as well as wallpaper and a couple other web pages. So again, I'm control clicking to select thoughts and add them to the selection box. And if I accidentally click on the wrong thought, I'll click on this winning edge. I've added that. I didn't mean to add that. I can control click on the winning edge over in the selection box to move it back out of the selection box. So it's very easy to select the thoughts that I want to be identified. There we go. As media research. So once again, I right-click, and you can see how nicely and quickly all of this content is falling into place. Shelley already showed us earlier, I was going to share with you identifying some people. I do want to move my people out of being child thoughts and move them over to being jump thoughts. And these people are both managers, so I'll identify them as well. So thought type, I've already got it there for a manager. Now, both Steve and Donnie are managers, but they've got different roles with this ad campaign. One of them is actually going to just simply be an assistant, whereas the other person, Donnie, is actually taking the lead on presenting this ad campaign to our client. So I'm actually going to identify that a little bit differently. I'm not using a thought type. In this case, I'm using a link type. And a link type helps you identify the relationship between two separate thoughts. So Donnie and Steve are both managers. And they might move up the ladder or to different departments and have different titles in the future, and I can change their thought type. But just because they're managers doesn't mean they have the exact same responsibilities. For this reach out ad campaign, again, one is simply assisting, whereas they're probably taking the lead on other projects. So Donnie is actually going to be taking the lead, and I can click to highlight a link between two thoughts. And this is really important to point out, that when I click on a link between two thoughts, notice that, number one, my focus goes right to the link between the two existing thoughts, and everything else in the brain is currently grayed out. And down below, you may have noticed that the Thought Tool tab has become the Link Tool tab. So this is where I can actually identify properties of the link itself. I can leave notes on the link, so if I'm just talking about Donnie's relationship with this reach out ad campaign, not specifically about Donnie, not about the reach out ad campaign, but about the relationship between the two. Donnie requested this responsibility, etc. So, and thank goodness for spell check. I can right click and fix that, add my own timestamp, use all the features of the notes. I can even add attachments to links within the brain. So once again, I'm classifying the relationship between the two. And this comes in handy in many, many scenarios, particularly when one thought, one topic that you have in your brain is linked to so many other different topics. You know, Donnie may be a key person in my organization. He's got 20 different projects he's working on. And to have all of his information about each individual product and what his role is and what his reports are with that client, et cetera, that would be a lot of content all on Donnie's thought. And again, the Reach Out ad campaign might have its own set of notes and information, but not Donnie's information about Reach Out is going to be on the link. So therefore, I can add attachments, I can add notes when I have the link highlighted. I can also label the link. So I can manually type in that Donnie is in charge. So when that is highlighted again, oh, I typed that wrong. So Donnie's in charge. Now you can see I'm identifying the relationship. And I'm not sure if I've got the screen resolution, maybe make my thoughts a little bit larger here. And there you can see when I hover over, Donnie is in charge of the Reach Out ad campaign. But I can also set up link types that can be utilized over and over again. Again, just to save me time, but I can also run reports on my link type. So I can find all thoughts connected to another thought via a particular link. It's really, really a great feature to start using. I'm actually going to click on the link between the two. So again, once I do, I see my note down below. I see my link label. I'll take off that in charge. And this time I'm going to right-click on the link and set up a link type. So this is where we can set up a new link type or use an existing one. It's very straightforward to click on new type, type in the link type name, and assign a color. I've already done that, so I'm going to say Donnie is the specialist for this ad campaign. So it appears with a nice purple link between the two, and I can always identify that Donnie is the Reach Out ad campaign specialist. Steve, however, I'll right-click on the link between Steve and Reach Out and set up the link type that he is the assistant. And actually, instead of specialist, I'm going to change that once again. Link type, I can see I've got account lead. So I'll change that to account lead so it really stands out. And I'm clearly identifying the relationship between these two thoughts. And as I mentioned earlier, I can run a report. And I'll get to reports in just a moment once I share a few more sort of specialty features with you for cleaning up within the brain. My last component is setting up thought tags. So thought types are basically a major category that it's into. Now, I did not want to create a thought in this scenario that simply says meeting notes and have all my meeting notes connected to that one thought. I've got a lot of different meeting notes, and they are specific to the topic that they're related to. So obviously, my meeting notes fall under the particular ad campaign that I happen to be in the meeting about. And that's where all my meeting notes are going to be, under each individual client or underneath the ad campaign, what have you, rather than just having one meeting notes thought. So that is a great use for a thought type. It clearly identifies this April 2016 thought as a meeting note. These are media research thoughts. And over here, we've got life cycle documents. So very specific identifiers to a thought, but they may have certain attributes. And that is where the thought types come into play. So, or thought tags rather, excuse me. Thought tags, multiple thought tags can be assigned to a single thought. So I'm just going to grab, for example, the project plan. And this project plan for the Reach Out ad campaign is something that I am currently focused on. This is top priority for me. We want to re-sign this customer. Their contract is coming up, and we really want to impress them with this upcoming ad campaign. So this project plan that I have for Reach Out is something that I'm working on over the next week or so, day and night. It takes up a lot of my focus, and I'm going to mark this as urgent and important. That's one of my thought tags. Now, what needs to get completed? Well, all that information would be down on the notes. I don't have anything yet, but I can start making my checklist. So I need to secure funding. I need to create the presentation or finalize customer presentation, etc. So I'm going to have a long scrolling list here. And to secure funding, I actually need to speak to my boss, the person in charge that's going to give that the stamp of approval, yes or no. How much do you want to spend? What is the budget? There'll be probably some paperwork involved there. But I'm going to check that as talk to Shelley. So I've got a specific action item, talk to Shelley, so that when Shelley calls, Shelley's very busy. I can't always just pick up the phone and get a hold of Shelley whenever it's important to me. She might be in a meeting or have other appointments. So when she calls me back, I'm going to be very prepared for that call because I can click on that action item, in this case, the thought tag, talk to Shelley. And we've got two different projects that I need to speak with her about. The World, which is another ad campaign. I'm just starting with another client. And then the project plan, which is a life cycle document for Reach Out, another ad campaign. We can have our discussion and let's say, hey, it sounds good to me, but you need to run this past Phil. I don't have an action item for talk to Phil, so I'll create one. So this project plan no longer needs to talk with Shelley about that, and I can leave notes about our discussion, obviously in the notes area, and I'll add a new thought tag. Talk to Phil. There we go. So I've got a new action item for talk to Phil. Now, I'm sharing with you different options that you can have for your thought tags. You can create your own thought tags. We actually have a feature built into the brain where you can import pre-existing business thought tags. So you can definitely play around with that. And if we have time today, I can demo and share with you what some of those pre-built thought tags are. But feel free to create your own grouping of thought tags, whatever your business model reflects. You can see I've got many different types of tags here, whether it's an action item that on a thought that I need to do with someone, or just sort of a ranking level. And we see this in many different phases or formats, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. If you're familiar with getting things done, we've got a lot of different brain users that actually create thought tags called on the runway, 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, and it's a way of identifying the urgency of a thought. For me, I particularly like this urgent, important, urgent, not important, not urgent, but still important. So that it's a system that simply works for me. And notice that I actually start these with an asterisk. I like to point that out because when I am looking for one of these 4 classifications or attributes of a thought, I can simply go to the search and type in an asterisk. And it gives me these 4 thought tags: urgent, important, urgent, non-important, etc. And I can click to go directly to that tag and see all thoughts that are currently marked urgent and important. So I've got a few ad campaigns, I've got this project plan, and actually a radio blitz that I'm working on with the customer, and a mail res DB, a database that actually needs some updates. So a grouping of thoughts that would normally never be associated with one another, but they all share the same attribute in this case, which is urgent and important. So once again, a great way to classify and identify further the information that's going on in your brain. And then finally, I wanted to share with you the report, since we've mentioned it a few times. I'm just going to refresh my report list. I'll come back here to project plan and reach out. Now, your report list, when you refresh, will give you an alphabetical listing of all the thoughts in your brain. So I've got 980 thoughts in this brain. But if I quickly want to get to a thought of a particular thought type or with a particular thought tag, I can restructure my report list, or filter it, and I'll go down and say, show me all thought types that are ad campaigns. So my marketing director walks into the office. We want to review all the different ad campaigns we're working on, and here they are right in front of me. I've got ad campaigns peppered throughout my brain under the different clients that they're associated with. But if I want to get to them quickly, I can do this and get directly by clicking on the actual report result to go directly to that specific thought. And I mentioned earlier the link types. So once again, I want to find all thoughts that are linked via an account lead. Now, I just created this recently, but here I can see Donnie Lou is an account lead for a project. Fred Baxter is an account lead for the Time Warner client. John Powers is an account lead for Red Cross. So all thoughts that are connected via that specific relationship that I've identified, the link type account lead, I can find all thoughts that contain that criteria. I can do the same with thought types, tags, and link types. And finally, my last component is that I can run down and create my own custom report. So I can use all these additional features that I've shared with you today and actually build a custom report, thoughts that have this and this, not that, etc. So a lot of modifications and customizations you can do here with this custom report, and you can save these and run them over and over again in the future as your brain continues to evolve. So I create a report, and I might not get the same results in a week from now or a month from now in the same brain because different thoughts have fallen in to match that criteria or no longer match the date requirements I've specified or attachment types, et cetera, that I've moved in and out of the brain. So a lot that can be done there with those customized reports as well. So we've shared with you some really advanced features of the Brain application today, and I hope you feel free to start playing around with these thought types and tags and adding them into your brain. And hopefully, Shelley, and maybe this question came up in the question panel, we can also share with you some of the pre-built templates that we have that can introduce you to these features. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the question and answer panel. I see we're just 2 minutes over the hour, so let's stay late and answer a few additional questions. Shelley, how has the panel gone? Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, we've had a lot of different questions coming in that we're going to get to. And I do want to let you know, for those of you that do need to leave on the hour, we will have that recording available. You'll get it emailed since you signed up for the session, and then it'll also be posted on our homepage tomorrow as well. But yeah, we're going to dive into, for those of you who can stay, go over time for another 10 minutes just to go into a few more questions. I want to start with Alex's question. First of all, he says, I have several brain files to be shared with different people. can those be merged into one master brain, retaining the separate restrictions on place in each brain? Oh, well, that's a little interesting. I think, though, what I do want to cover, well, first of all, let's directly answer Alex's question. You can merge all those things together, but once you merge them, they sort of become one brain, and then that one brain has to have the access control. However, you can put links to other brains. So maybe in sort of answering Alex's question, we can cover how to link to other brains within a master brain.
Absolutely.
And then to take Alex's question a step further, segmenting, maybe copying and pasting thoughts from one brain to another. Like, for instance, my president's brain, and let me know, email me if any of you want it. Jim actually asked me, just for that area, he actually has a really cool brain on public policy that I might even tweet that one out, on American laws and legislative bodies. He's at Carnegie Mellon, and he wants just my U.S. president section so that he can add that to the brain. You might get that. Like, I get
Great.
that all the time. Like, gosh, Shelley, I don't need all this other stuff. Send me your U.S. president. So, Matt, if you want to cover sort of segmenting and copying and pasting thoughts from one brain to another,
Absolutely.
and linking, I think that will be very much on topic for today's webinar.
Sure. Let's go ahead and start with that. I'm going to go to my Reach Out ad campaign, and let's say Donnie or Steve actually wants a copy of all this content that I've put together for this ad campaign. Maybe I'm handing this off to them as I move on to another project. Well, I don't want to give them access to my entire brain. I've got a lot of proprietary content. But this content that you see on the screen right now is very important to them. So I'm actually going to start with Time Warner. Let's say I want to send them everything I have for Time Warner so they have a better understanding of other projects that I've worked on with them and other documents. So I'm going to add Time Warner into my selection box. And obviously to do that, once again, I Control-click on Time Warner. So that adds Time Warner to the selection box. On a Mac, that would be Command-click. And now I can right-click in the selection box, and here's an additional feature. I can select to crawl brain and modify selection. So I'm adding to the selection box, I'll say every child word, and we'll just go child word thought for 4 generations or 5 generations. I don't want to go too deep, just for the sake of time to copy all of this content, because it does add, in this case, everything 5 generations down is being added here into my selection box. And when I copy this, I right-click in the selection box, copy selected thoughts. I can now create a new brain. I've got that information on my clipboard. I'm going to create a new brain from scratch. These are those templates we talked about earlier that I could select. This is just going to be a clean brain called Donnie's Info. So this is information specifically for Donnie about Time Warner. All those thoughts that I copied are on my clipboard. They're thought types, they're tags, they're file attachments, the notes. It's all on my clipboard right now on my PC. I right-click in the background once this new brain has been created and select Paste. Verify that I do want to do that task. And the brain is taking care of the rest for me. So again, all the link types and the thought types and tags, graphics, and all the file attachments will be that were in that selection box. So that's everything under Time Warner has now been added to this thought. And of course, in the Reach Out ad campaign, there's all those different categories that I selected today. Now, that's one option you have for segmenting brains, master brains into smaller topic-specific brains. I've got a few options. My easiest is I can actually take this brain and synchronize it with the cloud, so I can push it up to webbrain.com and share this brain with Donnie. My other option is I can click on File and select to create a brain zip. So that zips up this entire brain into a single file that can be moved over onto a thumb drive and maybe even emailed over to Donnie if the file size is appropriate. But also I can, let's say another example, merging 2 brains together. Now the merging 2 brains together is very, very straightforward. Simply in a brain, click on File and select to merge brain. It's going to ask you to select the other .brain file, so I can browse through my brain, and there you can see I've got other brains I can select It's going to open that brain, copy everything, and merge it into this one brain. But Shelley mentioned a really, really great feature is linking to other brains. And there are several different ways to do that as well. If I have everything local, I can link two brains to one another just with their local URL. So here's this Time Warner thought. I can right-click and select to copy local thought URL and navigate to a different brain. And so it closes my temporary brain that I just created. I'm back in my eSoul brain, and we'll go down here under Contacts, right-click, and paste thought URL. So now I've got a really nice link between these two different brains. That's one way to jump from brain to brain to brain. You might want to play around with that. And that's just for your local brains. Now, we talked a little bit about syncing to the cloud. Everything that Shelley and I have done here today has been on our local PCs. So this is a local brain running right here from my PC, but I have synced this brain to the cloud. I'll go ahead and resync so it gets all my most recent updates, and it puts it out on webbrain.com. On webbrain.com, every brain and every thought in every brain that you put onto webbrain.com has a URL. Now, by default, that information is all secure, protected, password protected. It's safe just under your account. But you've got the option, and I'll open up here my webbrain.com account. You've got the option of sharing those brains with other users. So that's another way that you can share a brain with a colleague. So I'm going to log into my brain and log in with my credentials here. And when I log in, I can go to the Explore page to see public brains. I can go to my personal account page just to see brains that I have created. And if I go into the settings area, this is where I can modify the settings for this brain. Who has access to it? Who can see it? This brain, I have made it unlisted. I've actually made Shelley an editor of this brain, so it's showing up on her account page as well. And she can download, make her own modifications, and sync. So we're collaborating in the same brain.
That's right, and I am definitely going to be taking advantage of those editorial decisions and going in there and having some fun with that brain.
Excellent. And I can also go into my account page. I'll open up this particular brain. Now I'm viewing the brain online, and look how nice it is side by side with my online version and my desktop version. They are practically identical. There are some more features on the desktop version than there are to the online interface, but still we can navigate through the online interface. Actually, let me jump down into clients. And let's say I just wanted to get a person to this particular thought, the clients area of my brain that I am sharing with publicly with them or privately with them. I can right-click on the background, select share, and just grab a nice URL that will take them specifically to that thought in that brain. So I can tweet that out to the world if I've made this a public brain, or just share it in an email with my colleagues to get people on the right page, in the right location to the brain that I have online. So a lot of different options that you have there with sharing the brains, merging them together, or segmenting them into topic-specific brains and sharing them with others.
All right, great. And we had a few questions about your media research, about it being an unlinked thought, but that was a thought type, right, in your earlier example?
I think I know what someone is referring to. Yes, that is a thought type. That is a new thought type that I created, media research. So when I created it, it wasn't linked to anything yet. It was just a thought type that was floating out there that I haven't used. Once I start using it, thoughts are actually linked to what we call, it's basically a virtual thought. So if I go down to my reports and refresh, and I'll go to my thought types. Actually, yes, I'll do reports, or here, I'll just go this way. There's media research. So now that I've created that media research thought, it was just sort of floating out there for a moment because I hadn't linked anything to it. Now I've identified thoughts as specifically being media research. And so when I go to the media research thought type thought, you can see that they are actually linked as child thoughts there. And anytime you have a little halo, if you can see that media research has a little halo going around it, that's identifying that as a thought type. If I look on the thought tool tab down below, I get a little message, this is a thought type. But also someone might have mentioned or noticed that if I hover over a thought, it's not saying media research. And that is because this particular thought, this is a web page, Confederation Studio, a digital design agency. When I link this to TheBrain, because of the coding in the web page, TheBrain saw that label and it actually added that label to the individual thought. So that's overwriting the thought type label, if that makes sense. I can delete this. So I'll delete that, and now when I mouse over, it tells me media research. So the thought itself no longer has a label, so it's inheriting the thought label from the thought type. So there's a little bit of a hierarchy there with your thought tags and types and labels and so forth.
All right, great. And a question from Thomas. Can I add icons to the app, icon directories? If so, what restrictions are there? Well, really, you can add an icon to any thought in your brain, even if it's a folder shortcut, which is kind of cool. So if I drag and drop, a lot of people have, ginormous file folder directories. You can drag and drop that folder in and then add icons. We have over 1,500 icons in the Brain 8. So if you're not on the Brain 8, that is one solid reason to upgrade to the Brain 8. And of course, you can create your own icons. So Matt, I don't know if you want to show this. And then a couple people asked about how I got the zoomable photographs on the president's brain. So maybe you can also cover attaching images as icons to thoughts as well. And by the way, Matt will be doing a great webinar in 2 weeks called The Brain for Presentations. And he's going to cover a lot of that kind of stuff, zoomable icons. So if you're into the presentation feel and you're presenting to an audience with your brain, which is a fabulous application of the brain, by the way, do sign up for that. That one is a very popular topic. It's one of our favorites, and that is going to be in a couple weeks, actually, on May 18th.
Great. So yes, you certainly can modify that list. And again, please just send an email into support@thebrain.com, and we'll let you know how you can access or where you can find this list, the icon library in the Brain, and actually create your own subfolder called Your Stuff and add your own things so that your icons appear there. So that's definitely an option for you. The zoomable icons actually can be grabbed right from the Brain itself. The Brain has a great, if you're familiar with Snagit, it's the same type of structure where you can just copy something that's right there on the screen and instantly apply that as a zoomable icon for that thought. So here I've opened up this web page, one of the web pages that I'm referencing for this ad campaign, the Lightning Syndicate. I'm not so concerned about what the actual web page is. It looks like, it kind of looks kind of Star Wars-y, but I like the graphics and the way that they're using the graphics on their website. And so I'm sharing that with my design team. So if I would prefer to have a screen grab from their website, and I do this often, particularly with PowerPoints. I don't like launching the PowerPoint to see if this is the PowerPoint with that big title splash page that I like. So I take a screenshot and apply it to the thought, and I'll do that for the Lightning Syndicate. So with the Brain open here right on top and the image that I like in the background, I'm going to right-click on this thought and select to capture the thought icon. So the Brain minimizes automatically, and I am left with these crosshairs. If you ever want to take a screenshot of the Brain, you can click on Tab. That brings the Brain back up. That's sort of a neat feature. But here we go with this Lightning Syndicate, and I'll just grab a screenshot right from their website. And now that is my zoomable icon for that thought. So it's simply done by having the image you like in the background, right-clicking on the thought, and selecting Capture Thought Icon. That'll bring up that little red crosshair, click and drag to find the image that you like. And the image itself will always zoom to the maximum size that it can within the thought area, within what we call the plex. So there you can see it goes top and bottom of the plex. If I make the plex a little larger, then the image will go a little larger because that was a fairly large image that I just captured. And that's my zoomable icon. really, really great for presentations because you can simply mouse over a thought really quickly to show someone, hey, this is the wallpaper I'm thinking for this project, or this is a picture of our clients or of the team that's going to be working on your project. Whatever the case may be, you can just mouse over to identify it without having to launch that attachment in some type of photo viewer or some other application.
All right, great. And a couple more questions. One coming in, I'm just trying to find the name. It's about, Henry asked questions, suggestions about super types. So we've covered thought types, and a super type is really just the parent. And in fact, Matt, if you want an example, I think we have some super types in some of the template brains, or you might have them in another brain. But basically, it's just like you might have a bunch of people types. So your super type would be people, and then under people, in that you can use that super type as well, but then under people you might have executive, expert, manager as the type below it. So it's like another level of typology where you can actually have an embedded hierarchy in your thought type. So Matt, I'll let you quickly address Henry's question of super types.
Absolutely. And here you can see I've got the same structure that Shelley just outlined for us. People, and there's all my different types of people, my consultants, directors, engineers, and so forth. It's really great for running reports. I can run a report and say, okay, show me all of my thought types that are people. And so I'll go to the people. There they are. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing all of my managers, engineers, consultants, and so forth. Or I can run just a report for engineers or managers, what have you. To create super types and subtypes, simply connect existing thought types. So I'm going to go to my thought type tool tab, and let's go to media research. Media research is always going to be a component of an ad campaign. If you remember, my ad campaigns had all of the media research thought types, the meeting notes, the presentations. So if I connect media research and give it a parent thought of my existing thought type, which is ad campaign, and there it is in my existing thought list, I'll double click. So media research is now a subtype of ad campaign. Ad campaign is a super type. And if I refresh my tool down below for my thought types, I can see that ad campaign has a subtype, media research. And now I'll do the same I'll just navigate to my lifecycle documents. I'll connect that to ad campaign as well. So ad campaign now has two subtypes. Lifecycle and media research. So it's a great way of nesting, and you can make that as deep as you want to go, as technical as you want to go. I typically have one main category and a few subcategories underneath. But I have seen brains created by other users that it reflects their business model to be able to go all the way down, subtype, 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 subtype. And they run a report for that very first thought type and can see any subtype that falls below it. So it's a very, very, again, a more advanced feature of the application, but starts providing more context to my business philosophy.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and we're 20 minutes into overtime, but real quick, there was a question from Will, which a lot of you are asking, is there an update coming to TheBrain iOS? Yes, that will be part of the TheBrain 9 release. And for those of you asking about the new release, I do want to let you know anyone who's purchased yet in November qualifies for that complimentary upgrade of the TheBrain 9. So the TheBrain 9 is in private beta right now. If you are a services member, meaning you have a Brain Pro combo, you can actually qualify to do the pre-beta release, which is kind of cool. But if not, there'll also be a public release. But part of getting the combo services is we throw out earlier releases. And so if you're a techie who likes to preview that kind of thing, I recommend when you're purchasing the Brain not to just get the $219 license, although that will qualify you for the upgrade. I would recommend the $299, which gives you the cloud services that Matt demoed, the backup, the synchronization across multiple machines, and access to these earlier previews if you're the kind of person that likes to play with new technology releases. And then for the rest of you, obviously, that'll come when it comes sometimes this year. And that's just getting back to Will's question about iOS. When that comes, we'll have an iOS release, new functionality, you know, new tech stuff constantly. The engineering team is at its best and working on all kinds of new features for you. And then for those of you, some of you were talking about being on 7. My goodness, you better at least get to 8 to get your 1,500 icons and a whole slew of other features. And of course, if you get the services, you get complimentary updates. And we can always add a service plan onto your existing Brain accounts. And then one other final question, a question about search, interestingly enough, coming from Aaron to do a search web feature on a thought. And he was asking, is there a shortcut for search web? So Matt, I don't know if you want to quickly show if you go up to options, the search web feature, and that will automatically take your active thought and launch a search on that topic. But the shortcut for it is F4, so you can do that. F4, you have to have the Brain open to do F4. He suggested it would be nice to be able to hit F4 and just go straight to that search engine, so that's an interesting idea as well. And of course, you can set your search engine. I think the default is Google, but you can set it to whatever you want there.
That's right. Customizable feature. You can even customize it so that the key stroke is something other than F4 if you'd like. But yes, F4 brings up the search web. With the current active thought name is what your search criteria is going to be. I can modify that if I'd like, but it's a great feature. There's also options for Twitter search. We don't have a default for that, but you can set that up in your preferences, a keystroke shortcut to Twitter search, whatever the topic is there as well. And of course, the search within the Brain, as long as the Brain is open, if I just start typing and don't have anything selected, I'm not clicking on a thought, I just start typing, the Brain assumes I'm searching for something, and whatever I'm typing is going to go right there into the search box within the Brain. So that's just searching my Brain content, all the file attachments, web links currently existing in my Brain, etc. So a few different search features for you to utilize and experiment with.
And then final question, there was a question about the little clock next to the search box, and that's also great and on topic for editing and gardening your Brain because that is our timeline view. And so if you just want a chronological view, what have I created in the last day, week, you can click on that clock and you get a nice view, a nice output of all your thoughts you've modified, and of course clicking on any one of those thoughts will then move you to that area in the visual display. So I definitely recommend utilizing the timeline view for your editorial audits of your Brains as well.
That's right, and there you can see I've just clicked on timeline so I can see where my focus has been in this particular Brain over the past week, over the past month, and just access those thoughts that have been modified very, very quickly.
All right, great. And I think we're going to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on our very action and jam-packed, feature-packed 202 class, Gardening and Editing Your Brain. I hope you all see how easy it is to mass select and empower. And Matt, I'm really glad you got crawl and modify in as a selection because I forgot to cover that in mine. So that's yet another way to mass select a group of thoughts. Before we close the webinar, any other final words of wisdom or features to mention before we move on to our next sessions?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, a lot of more advanced features within the application. If you're just getting started with the Brain, I want to remind everyone that every Friday we have a Brain 101 class, typically hosted by myself. And it's a smaller class size. We can get to all the questions in case we missed any in the question panel today. So please feel free at any time to join a Brain 101. The full schedule of Brain 101s held every Friday is on our website, easily accessible.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great class because I know there's probably a few just downloaded the application, hopped on this webinar, and you're thinking, wow, I haven't even started creating my brain. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, hosted by Matt, and you can even jump in just at the end of the class if you have a specific question you want demoed. So it's a great resource for all users. And Will is asking, how can I get your U.S. president's thoughts? Well, I'm going to segment that out in a separate brain. Anyone who wants the U.S. presidents, especially now looking back in history and where we are for this election cycle, which is kind of crazy, but when you look at history, maybe not that crazy, go ahead and email me and I'll send you guys those thoughts. I'll just do that area because that other brain is just, wow, it's big and kind of crazy, but just get the U.S. presidents. I know Will wanted it and Jim wanted it, so you can just reply to the GoToMeeting invite. Maybe we'll even actually put that up as a download in the thank you note. That'll save some internet bandwidth. And just keep in mind, I'm just doing that through BrainZip. If you were my colleague, I would actually just give you access through TeamBrain, but in this case, you'll keep it separate, and obviously you have to have your application installed in order to open a BrainZip. And with that, I think we're going to end today's session. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you again on future Brain Technologies web event. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.